What if the parts that you're trying to fix and get rid of are the parts that God wants to hold the most? Hi, I'm Vanessa, and this is Mystical Sobriety. Today, we're diving into James Finley's beautiful idea that the mystery is not that we're broken, the mystery is that we're infinitely loved in that brokenness. So, to begin with, the shift from fixing to holding. In early sobriety, we often think, okay, I got sober, I'm finally going to fix everything. But mystical sobriety invites us into a deeper truth, into a deeper calling, not even understanding, but just into a deeper truth. You don't have to fix everything. You're not a project. You are a spiritual person getting back in touch with that beauty of your own spiritual perfection, even in the human brokenness that tends to come up in our lives. And that often leads us directly into addiction, even food and gambling. There's all types of behavioral types of addictions. And these are all ways in that during the brokenness that we encountered throughout our lives, we try to find some way to fix it. Like this is almost like a duct tape that we're trying to bind ourselves together with. And it only ends up causing more division within ourselves, right? Because we're only becoming more separated from our true selves, peaceful selves, the spiritual, innocent, pure, joyful selves that we were born as. No child is born thinking, I'm broken. It's more like a child is born and is like, all right, give me food, give me hugs, give me attention. That baby is fully aware and knowing that baby is worthy of those things. And as we grow up, whether it's society or it's a traumatic experience, we understand that our needs are not going to be met. And somehow we begin to, or our expectations are not going to be met, or we begin to experience disappointments and heartbreak. And we begin to maybe internalize that experience and those heartbreaks as some type of reflection of our own unworthiness. And in an attempt to somehow put a band-aid on that or to stop the bleeding, we can seek things that help us feel better. And again, that goes back to the drugs and alcohol or compulsive behaviors. And sometimes, even if these attachments or these addictions to these external things don't necessarily resonate with you, I would challenge you to see if there's any self defeating beliefs or ideas about yourself or fears that you cling to that you kind of have created as your foundation for how you operate in this life, in this existence, in your relationships, at your job? Is there a certain outlook or perspective about yourself or the world at large that you are clinging to be your North Star or your compass? And if so, there is no shame in that. This is what is actually the crux of mystical sobriety. I really like what James Finley says, where he says the spiritual path is not about making ourselves worthy of God. It's about learning to receive the love that's already there. And this hits different when you're newly sober because for years we performed, we hustled for love. And we put on a performance. We became, okay, if I am this unworthy, if I am this heartbroken, if none of these things went well, it must be, we internalize a reflection of ourselves and who we are. And so if who we are is not okay, then I'm going to put on this display as somebody else. And sometimes that display is the perfectionist. It's the gold star winning straight A students, the overachiever, that perfectionist image. Sometimes it is the quiet, kind of loner type of persona. I'm just going to sit here. I'm not going to bother anybody. I'm not going to tell anybody what I'm thinking. Nobody cares anyway. Sometimes it is that rebellious and loud and angry persona. And sometimes, where we are going to fight and scream and kick and yell until we get what we need. And people are going to know when I'm unhappy, and people are going to know that I'm not going to follow their dumb rules. And sometimes we are the manipulative type of person, right? I just know that if I'm nice to this person and I say this to that person, I'll eventually get my way. And I don't care if I'm actually lying and I'm talking crap about them behind their back. At least I'm presenting in a certain way so that I know that'll get me what I need. And sometimes what we're not realizing that we're doing in that and where the brokenness is that we're feeling a sense of feeling unsafe. We don't actually feel secure or safe. And so we model these different personas so that other people receive that and provide us safety. It's some way to get our needs met. And we feel out of integrity in that within ourselves and call it bad. And we call it broken. And we call it that which cannot be spoken, that which I'm never going to admit to. It's to take it to the grave. I'm never going to let people know what a bad person I am or how actually hurt I am. They will always only get the mask that I'm wearing, that I want to present to the world. And there is this underlying, not only are we doing that in order to receive safety and to feel safe, but to receive love. And in mystical sobriety, we're really playing with the idea. We're not playing with the idea. We are accepting the truth that we are now just being invited to receive that love, to receive that safety, to receive that security, even if it doesn't look like the way that we think that it needs to. Is there anywhere in your life where you feel like you have to put on a different persona? I know I felt like this way a long time at work, for example. Whenever I would walk into office at work, I would just know that I had to be like, okay, now I'm happy-go-lucky and people-pleasing Vanessa, and I'm going to go ahead and put all of my needs off to the side in order to make sure that everyone else's needs are met. And I'll tell you, that was during the peak worst of my alcoholism. I would be puking in the bathroom and then be popping up and be like, no, it's fine. You didn't meet your deadline. I'll go ahead and take over your assignment, or I'll go ahead and fix this problem you just created. And I did all of this in an effort to make sure that one, I wasn't going to lose my job because I was an alcoholic and calling out pretty frequently because of how sick I was getting from the alcohol, or because I was arrested, or because I had just gotten into a fight with a boyfriend and I didn't sleep the night before, or whatever it was. And I did that in an effort to stay safe and to stay secure and to prove my worthiness in that job. And it was almost considered like a sin to show up in any unprofessional way. That was just how the idea that was drilled into me growing up. You must always show up as a professional. I'm not showing up like a slob or anything at work and just like cussing up a storm and being in my worst self either. But now I am showing up as a truer self of where maybe I don't have all the answers and maybe I need clarification on stuff. I'm okay asking questions now. I'm okay not looking like the most knowledgeable person in the room or like that I can help everybody. I'm not going to overextend myself to solve other people's problems. I'm not going to put my priorities on the back burner because I'm afraid that if I don't, that I'm not going to be liked or that my coworkers are going to be angry with me or something. You know what I mean? And so it's okay, that's all nice. That sounds great. But what does that actually look like? It means that instead of white knuckling it, right? But let's really think about that. If you are on a roller coaster and you are just holding on to the bars and you are holding on so tight, right? You are just like losing feeling to the rest of your arms and your knuckles are turning white because of how tightly you are hanging on. And we do that with our emotions, especially in early sobriety when we don't really have the tools yet to handle our emotions or life situations in any other way. We're just like, all right, I'm on for the ride. Where is this going to take me? And we're just trying to get through it. There's always this sense of, I just need to get to the other side of this. I just need to make it through this. I just need to conquer this so that I'm not feeling it anymore. And instead, in mystical sobriety, it's actually, let's just chill in this for a second. Let's just sit in this emotion for a while. And for me, a lot of the emotions I had trouble with, actually, I had trouble with all the emotions, if I think about it. Yeah, it was the sadness, the disappointment, a lot of disappointment. I hated feeling disappointed. And so I would say, I didn't really want that anyway, or that's not really what I meant by what I was asking for, or that was dumb anywhere. That person wouldn't know how to give me that anyhow. Can you guys hear the siren? I don't know. Or even like the good emotions, even love, being like, oh no, I don't want to take this seriously. This is just going to be like a situationship type of thing because not wanting to get attached, not wanting to get hurt. Or even the happiness, being happy about something, having any type of enthusiasm for something, because now you're setting yourself up for an expectation or some type of, and anytime there's an expectation, that's a resentment waiting to happen, basically. It's like this, it's setting yourself up for failure almost, right? But what if, yeah, you do get into that failure? So then let's sit in that. Let's sit in that disappointment. What does it mean? It means that something didn't go the way that I wanted it to go. And now I'm feeling a little bit heartbroken by it. And I really thought that would have been a good opportunity or that would have been fun or I would have really enjoyed this, whatever. And instead, now I'm facing the reality that I didn't get it because maybe I didn't study hard enough. And so I didn't get that A that would have gotten me into that prestigious program or whatever. Or maybe it's my friend didn't show up to take me to court on time. And so now my license is still suspended. And I guess that just shows that I'm a failure and I can't attract friends who care about me. And now my whole entire life is a failure because why else would I be in this situation? I've been staying overtime and I really hope I got this promotion. And I think that my boss likes me. So maybe I will be seen and promoted for this position. And then somebody else gets it. And it's, oh, okay, that hurts. And sitting in that disappointment of what am I making this mean right now? And making it mean that my boss doesn't like me, that nobody likes me, that my hard work isn't good enough, that I'm not good enough, that I'm never going to get what I want. I'm never going to get paid what I want. Now there's financial insecurity. And it's how we can just sit with that and sit in those feelings instead of rushing and white knuckling to get through it and rush by it and just act like it never happened because it's uncomfortable. And instead of just trying to impress God with, oh, look at how well I just managed that disappointment. Look at how well I just brushed by that heartbreak. And look how well I just am moving on from this. It's actually just being able, God's not impressed by that. God knows more than you know about you. And just being able to be like, yeah, that hurt. That was not what I wanted to hear. That was not the diagnosis that I wanted. That was not the bad news I could withstand, or that was not the good news that I could withstand at the moment, and just really let ourselves be seen. And in my personal experience, I revert back to just like little girl me. For some reason, it is that disappointment that's like, I can almost always touch this place of when like I was a little girl and I first felt that way. And it's, God, I remember when I felt this way when this happened. This is what it feels like again now. I don't know if that's a common experience. You'll have to let me know in the comments below if you can identify a time like when you were first heartbroken. Like to me, I'm always immediately reverted back to little girl Vanessa and that very first heartbreak or that very first disappointment or that very first shock or that very first feeling of being out of control, that very first feeling of that fear that was just almost seemed bigger than me and bigger than God at one point. And whenever something current day happens, I'm immediately shot back to that. And I can just sit there and be like, God, this is what that feels like. Even though I'm almost freaking 40 years old, this is what that feels like. And yeah, it's humbling for sure. But I also know that God was there for me, even with little girl Vanessa, right? So it's not like it's anything new. And it's important that instead of rushing to, how do I fix this? Being able to just really sit there and be like, how can I stay present to this? Just being present. And it doesn't mean that we have to linger here forever. It doesn't mean that we have to re-traumatize ourselves, actually. That's not what we should be doing. And if you do feel like you're being re-triggered into re-traumatizing yourself, please do make sure that you're getting additional assistance, that you have a professional or a spiritual advisor that you can call, that you can talk to, that you can rely on. There is some power in just sitting with this feeling. And I don't know for you, but like it becomes very physical for me sometimes. Sometimes I become like nauseous or I get sweaty or my heart is racing or I feel an actual ache. It's like a heartbreak. Or I feel just like electricity throughout my limbs. And it's just this agitation, this anxiety. Sometimes it's hard for me to take a deep breath because it just feels so swallowed up, so consumed by whether it's grief or anger, sometimes even. And sometimes it's actually happiness. Honestly, I don't think a lot of people in my real life would know that, but sometimes joy can be really hard for me to receive. And I try so hard now to practice just receiving it. Same thing with like love or encouragement or those types of like compliments, for example, can be a little bit difficult. And now I am truly just in this practice of just receiving it. And again, it's not like, how do I fix this? How do I make this better? How do I get myself out of this feeling of discomfort that I'm feeling? Sometimes it's, okay, that project didn't work out. Let me go ahead and immediately move on to this next one. Or maybe there's some way that I can manhandle the situation to make it the way that I think that it needs to be, instead of just being like, nope, it didn't work out. Or even with the compliments. So it said something nice and it's, no, you, oh my gosh, no, your hair looks great. Or I love your outfit. Just like immediately flipping it over onto the other person. It's just to get out of that discomfort of that uneasiness of somebody seeing me in some way. So do not perceive me almost feels a little bit more comfortable, but at the same time might have the fear, the exact opposite of not being seen or perceived at all. And all of this sounds like maybe literal insanity to some people, especially to people who do not experience addiction or alcoholism. Like, I can understand that this maybe doesn't make any sense. All of this, again, to say that these ways that we have learned to cope, these unhealthy strategies or mechanisms that are almost unconscious now, right? These are just our internal reactions, our internal responses immediately to situations that we find disappointing or threatening or whatever it is. These aren't indicators of necessarily brokenness or like work harder and fix it and hurry up. It's quite the opposite. This is just a signal of becoming, of where we can grow, of where we can let God in and help us see where we can grow, right? We can't face what we're not willing to look at. We have to be, like the big book says, we have to be willing to face and be rid of these defects. But first, we have to be willing to face and sit with these things that we are automatically labeling as brokenness, and instead see them as badges of becoming. And what are we becoming? Who are we becoming? Who we were always created to be, who we were at birth, these little joyful bundles of love. I don't know. I think everybody's journey is a little bit different, but I do know that we weren't meant to stew in what we are labeling as brokenness. Again, you're not broken, you're becoming, and becoming someone who knows they are loved even when they feel unlovable. If any of this speaks to you, please hit subscribe and share with someone on the journey. Thank you so much for being here. Leave me a comment and say becoming. If you're willing to really sit this week